War Update INFOPOD, Boots on the Ground, Day 4 of the conflict. The question now shifting beneath the surface is this: what would have to change for Donald Trump to move from air and naval operations to boots on the ground? Let's break this down clearly. There are 5 triggers that historically shift a conflict into ground deployment. First, American casualties. If US personnel are killed in significant numbers, especially in a visible or high-profile strike, domestic political pressure intensifies rapidly. Presidents can sustain air campaigns. Ground wars require public justification. A large casualty event changes the political equation overnight. Second, strategic asset loss. If a US base, carrier group, or major regional ally suffers serious damage, containment strategy becomes retaliation strategy. That is when air superiority alone may be judged insufficient. Third, collapse of proxy containment. If Allied regional forces cannot hold territory, or if key cities fall into hostile control, Washington faces a credibility calculation. Ground forces are often deployed not just for victory, but to prevent humiliation. Fourth, hostage or infrastructure crisis. If Americans are taken hostage, or if energy choke points are seized long-term, pressure mounts to restore order. Energy routes are not symbolic, they are economic lifelines. Fifth, escalation by secondary actors. If additional regional powers enter directly, what begins as limited engagement can rapidly widen. Once alliances activate, wars accelerate. Now, Europe. Would European countries be obliged to send troops? Not automatically. There is no standing obligation unless a NATO member is directly attacked. Article 5 of NATO, collective defense, applies only if a member state is attacked on its own territory. If this remains a US-led external campaign, European governments are not legally bound to deploy ground troops. However, politically pressured? Yes. If the United States frames the conflict as a defense of shared security, European leaders would face internal debates. Support could come in stages: intelligence sharing, naval patrols, air logistics, sanctions enforcement, cyber defense. Ground troops would be the last escalation step, and it would depend heavily on public opinion, casualty levels, duration of conflict, whether the war is perceived as defensive or discretionary. European electorates are currently cautious about foreign ground wars. That matters. So where are we on day 4? We are still in limited engagement territory. Boots on the ground would signal a failure of containment, a shift from punitive strike to occupation or stabilization. That is a major escalation threshold. We are not there yet, but the next indicators to watch are American casualty announcements, congressional rhetoric, emergency NATO consultations, rapid reserve mobilization orders. Those are your early warning signs. You are up to date.